An initiative of the Greater Des Moines Partnership formed in 2007, the Business Innovation Zone, the BIZ, exists to connect entrepreneurial needs with qualified resources and to provide guided professional and business direction. The BIZ helps entrepreneurs maximize their successes by helping them navigate resources, strengthen knowledge, improve skills, form strategic alliances, and secure proper capitalization. To find out more about the BIZ, visit www.bizci.org.
Mine, I may need to take you up as my space bar.
Technology.
Technology. So this is, for me, this is really fun. Last night we had a bunch of people in Cedar Falls that flew out from California. Pretty popular bank in San Francisco. And it's neat that they flew into Des Moines, drove up, took them on to Cedar Falls. Pretty much went through the same talk last night, because I'm talking about kind of how everything's going on there. About a month ago, I gave pretty much the same talk in Austin, Texas, because there's a place for a total town in the world, total poaching going on in the United States right now. It's in Austin. So a little bit about me. Geek at heart. I'm really passionate about empowering people to do what they want to do, so that what they're doing is lined up with their passion. And what I strongly believe is, if you have people lined up with their passion, their 100% is much better than rock stars 80% frustration. So we work really, really hard to try and outline people out and make sure that that's what I do. My Twitter handle kind of says it best. You get BNOEQ, creative culture, disseminator of vision. I wrote that on there like 4 years ago, and people kind of made fun of it. It's really, it's for me, the most fun part of my job is those two pieces. Run around TV every day to tell people where we're going and make sure that we're working well. So for those that are liking to take notes, we're going to hammer through these. Sorry, it's okay. I think what's important is we're going to kind of give you a framework for how you can hire great people in the state of Iowa. And really, this is applicable anywhere throughout the world. And this kind of framework for hiring highly technical people is really difficult. So when I put this deck together and I was coming down to Des Moines, people were like, "Oh man, go show our secret sauce." And everyone's going to be able to hire like we hire. And I said, no, these are cultural, structural problems with companies. We're going to just tell them what it is, but they're going to take years until they can interact and how to change these structural issues. So I'm going to give you a clean slate on how it works. We get about, I don't know, around 100 applicants a month from all over the nation to come work for us. We actually have 3 students from New Mellon University that are living in Cedar Falls, so we just work with our staff. So that's kind of the reach that we get based on this. Okay. Next slide. So what does Banno do? Just real quick, kind of here, I got to get my pitch out there. Right. So Banno takes clickstream data and transaction data and another thing called PFM data, but that's, you don't need to know what that is. And we meld all this data together, and we really help people, help financial institutions market, and we help consumers with their finances. And if you really think about it, a consumer that is more regular in their payments because of tools, technology tools that we give to help them, is actually much better for a loan. So if the bank can help them with their cash flow, they can make greater payments. So we're trying to iron out some of those inconsistencies in the payments and align that with marketing. We're probably the only company in the world that does this. I know that's how I would want to try to do that. So, next slide. Where we're at, so this is Iowa, somewhere in there. These are customers that send us money. This little circle is about as far as I could drive my Honda Civic. We're going to golf outings and back 5 years ago. Now I gotta go phones. So, next slide. So a little bit about us. We're Startup Company of the Year 5 years ago, Software Company of the Year last year. Top 5 mobile banking in the world. Top 10 companies to watch in banking. Go around the field. That's a good story. That actually reflects what we're going to talk about today. So next slide. Kind of all over the place. But Tech Love in Iowa. So I used to be a Adobe Enterprise Evangelist, which basically means I'd go into rooms like this full of geeks that didn't want me to be there, but they were perfectly okay with me buying pizza and beer for them, and try and convert them into something. So I spent tons of time in San Francisco and all over the world. The funny thing about Iowa is the head of infrastructure for Twitter graduated from Iowa State 7 years ago. All right. One of the lead developers of HBase, which is runs Facebook, and stumbled upon Banner. It's an open source distributed big data database. He's from Davenport. And so there's all this like crazy talent in Iowa. Wait, Arnold's from here. You have to look to Arnold. But a lot of these people left because there wasn't a good cultural fit. And so now we're getting applications from people that left 15 years ago because they applied at Rockwell. And I love Rockwell, thank you, but culturally it wasn't a software company, it's more like an engineering type of company. And so they've been at Yahoo or whatever. Now, they're 42 and they're thinking about starting to think maybe I'll come back. So there's no shortage of amazing talent that comes out of this state. There's maybe just a shortage of Iowa Nice where we don't tell about what we're doing to keep those people here. So next slide. So the first thing I want to start with, and I've tried to put these in order of importance. So what's going to be fun is the sixth slide has invest in the ecosystem. And so if you run out of here and you say, well, we need to sponsor TechBrew, like you totally missed the point, okay? So these are all in order. And the next slide doesn't matter if you give up on a slide. So if anyone after this first one considers themselves out of it, feel free to leave. Okay, so articulate the purpose is the number one reason somebody comes to work for a tech company. Okay, so first slide. So if you come in for an interview with a technologist, they really want to understand a very clear 6-month, 1 year, and 3-year vision. You have to be able to articulate this. This is like a VC pitch, right? Like that level of detail in order to get them there. And if the story is, we're going to sell a bunch of consulting projects, and keep doing that, and you get to work on all these different things, second slide, they want hard problems. Okay, so it's really hard. This vision also has to be a hard problem that you're out there to solve. Right, so I would say we're picking on hard problems, and that attracts a certain technologists, is they want to refine their skill sets, right, over that vision and focus on that hard problem over and over. So if you're semi-technical, raise your hand. All right, nobody wants to build CRUD apps, right? It's called CRUD for a reason. So that, they don't want to update forms and fields and do little workflow things. That's not a hard problem. Hard problems are, I think John Deere is a great example of a company that's reinvented themselves as a software company over the last 5 years. So they've kind of said, hey, we're going to autonomously control all the vehicles in the field and allow the dash to travel around with the mobile user. Like this is a very hard problem. There's no Wi-Fi, there's no all kinds of things. You can't connect to Google Maps. So by doing that, they've articulated a better vision, and now they're starting to really be one of the companies in Des Moines that can attract and retain some of the best people. Next slide. Revenue growth business model. So what I mean by this, does everyone kind of know what that means? We should all say, yeah, we're totally revenue growth. IT is not revenue growth, software is revenue growth. So if the job that they're hired for is to cut costs, right? In the end, like, they're not dummies, right? They're problem solvers. So I cut all these costs, then what's my job after that? So it's usually not a hard problem because the problem has been solved. We're just trying to do a cost reduction strategy. And a lot of times, on the revenue side, see, people want to get better. They want to get specialized, which means we need to grow revenue so we can hire more people, so I can continue to specialize my trade. Does that make sense? If you're just there and you're going to do the same thing over and over again, you're a technologist, you get bored really easily. Like, every one of us has ADD right now. Okay? Like, we just want to fidget, we want to play with things. Okay? So if it's not a revenue growth business, it's going to get boring. My skills, it's not a hard problem. My skills are going to become useless, right? And technology changes every 9 months, so not a good place for me to go. Next slide. Vision must be the guiding rule. So this kind of comes up to here. This is a really polite way of saying we're so focused on the vision that even if your boss is in the way, you don't get in trouble if you do something because you're trying to follow the vision. Which means there has to be a purpose there, right? So it means that this could also be a good leadership talk as well. There's many overlaps, but vision has to allow a software developer to that be the guiding force. If you think about it, what does a software developer like to do? Talk about agile, iterations, and things like that. They need that longer term goal so they have some freedom inside of there to make mistakes, go make mistakes, and keep on going. Next slide. You absolutely must answer the why here, right? Because why on earth should I bring my problem solving ability to your company? And I think if you don't answer this question, if you don't hammer through these things right away in that interview session, if you don't reinforce them on a quarterly basis, people lose track of the vision, they lose track of the why, and they lose track of wanting to work on problems. All right, I think there's one more. Okay, so vision really comes down to making sure your senior management team or your divisional management team is all on the same page, right? So that you don't have one person going to mom, one person going to dad. You know that trick, right? Both ways said this. So it's really about keeping that team focused on that, so that it gives the people that you're supporting the freedom to work on those harder problems and to really focus on that. So that, Des Moines has great companies. Well, in that last slide, if you think about that slide, they're solving hard problems, long-term vision. I assume that they don't have a hard time finding programmers like Sam. Next. Any questions on that real quick? No. This is why I can have that slide and we're good, because that's a executive level how you need to be communicating with them. So software culture, go ahead with the first one here. Basically means programmers are first-class citizens. All right? No programmer wants to go to a company that some companies, I'm not going to stereotype this, it's like you give the programmer a donut and you get code back. Right? Does that kind of make sense? Like we show up with some blazers each day and everything's great. If you really think about the vision side of things, they're there to solve hard problems. Right? I think one of the worst things we ever did as a country was decide to outsource software for data. It was think about this, like, this computer stuff's catching on, right? So let's make all the best people at solving computer problems in a different country. I think they should outsource the CFO that sent people over there. I get the call center, but if you've never seen a cornfield, it's really hard to write software about it, right? And we have people come in all the time. I don't, like, everyone knows the probably won't get some great commodities prices this fall, right? It's too bad for too much rain, but if you got the crop, that type of cultural reference, isn't part of it if it's just a cost center. All right, so that kind of leads back to that there has to be a revenue growth side of things. But if you think of IT and programming, it's the same thing. Good luck hiring programmers. So Banno outsources IT. We don't fix our laptops, we don't fix our printers. I don't know the wireless password. We know what company comes in, fixes that type of stuff. And we've got like 60 computer scientists. I'm pretty sure we could figure out how the wireless system works. But culturally for me, I think that's not a good job. I know you're capable, but that's a break fix problem. Somebody else can deal with that. On the server side of things, we use a lot of Amazon and other tools that make it so that people aren't replacing RAM information. Next. You really have to articulate that engineers build intellectual property. All right, so that's back to a little bit about purpose, but in a software culture, think about any of the great software companies. What is their asset? What are they creating? And that resonates to the entire company. I don't think anyone at Apple is confused about the fact that they make intellectual property when they write each line of code, right? Next. Resources are strategic. What I mean by this is, you have an $85,000 programmer, has a 5-year-old laptop. There's a lot of mismatch here, right? If they don't have the right development environments, if they don't have the right books and all those type of things to allow them to be the best that they can be. Real quickly, people know that this is a cost center, right? Because we're already rationing CPU capabilities to them. There's nothing that's going to piss off a programmer more than waiting for 4 minutes to compile your intellectual property. Okay. Next. Remove arrogant assholes. So programmers, by definition, are introverts, right? So I'm a freak of nature, super outgoing person in the world that I come from. I don't exist. The arrogant assholes, especially if you're on what I would say the business side of things, the other ways of calling these people are cowboys or rock stars or whatever. They're so infectious, and since you have a pile of introverts there, that's what nobody talks about, right? But they're all frustrated, they're all really mad about working with this person. This is the person that has a code ownership, right? Like somebody commits something in their code base and they're like, snarl, what are you doing there? That person has to go. It doesn't matter how good they are, it doesn't matter how much technical debt they've hit in front of you, and you aren't really sure how to get around that. They have to go. And in the state of Iowa, like, we all know each other, right? There's 140,000 geeks in Iowa. You're literally like one away from everyone just by having Dan and I here today. So we already know who those people are. So when you hire one of them, we're like, wow, okay. Now you'll see a mass exodus coming out of that company pretty soon. These people are usually really great at interviewing. So I put that up there because you have to be conscious about the referenceability of that person. The big thing that you'll find is they're always siloed individuals. They want to be the absolute best, they're authoritative, they're an arrogant asshole. Next. Leadership has to build complex systems. what I mean by that is, if you bring in a programmer, and there is a technical track and a business track later, okay? There's no technical track and business track at Amazon. There's no limit to the amount of money you can make at Amazon if you're technical. A great technical person with experience is worth 20 times more than somebody without that experience. The other thing it allows you to do is there's certain types of problems that only people that have been at this for a long time can solve. And if you don't have those type of people on your team, your bandwidth of peak types of things that you want to solve, your scope gets flattened. It doesn't matter how many $50,000 people a year you throw at the problem, they can't solve it because they haven't been there before. And so when you're bringing people in, then you want to work with people that have done this. Next slide. Overall, culturally passionate about languages and systems. That's a nice way of saying, don't stamp that it's got to be .NET or else you shouldn't work here. And these are just tools. Next slide. Helps if the CEO is a real geek. And so I was going through this with some guys, and they said this, and I was like, oh, thanks, that's nifty. But I know, think about it, go from Amazon, Microsoft, Netflix, you go to Facebook, whatever, you go through the list. When it really comes to a software culture, right, your leadership has to understand things like technical debt. Otherwise, you're never going to have the resources to solve that. So this is nice if it exists. That's a hard one to change. We can't just go fire your CEO after this talk. But what's more important is that your leadership gets it. And by getting it, I don't mean that they have an MBA and they went to an agile boot camp for a weekend. And now they know how to scope the project, but they've gone through this before. All right, next. So that's our CTO right here. He is constantly sitting down with people in programming. That's why I made him my CTO, because he exhibits the same type of things that I used to do. And this is a pretty common area. Real quick, no shortage of resources for collaborative and pair programming at Manual. Next. So the technology stack. This one is hard, but we'll go with the first one. Language is segmented first. Okay, and if you're a geek, you get what I'm talking about. All right, so if somebody rolls up to you and says, well, I've got 8 years of ASP programming, pretty decent at Microsoft SQL Server. And the first thing I say is, what do you do in your spare time? Play golf. I say, have a good day, keep on doing what you're doing. And if they go, well, why do you guys use Scala? Because everything you can do in Scala, you can do in Python. It seems semantically similar and has type paths. Okay, I don't care that you know about our stack, but you know something about us. And so your technology stack is something that in a hiring process should be articulated. And I really believe that. So if you've got a bunch of resume or job openings on DICE, stuff like that, people segment whether or not they even apply based on what you're showing there. All right, so a modern technology stack, these are just tools, like no religion here, right? It's just a tool. So if you're using a tool that was the best tool 5 years ago, it speaks volumes to the type of culture that's going to be there, right? And if people come in and they say, well, let's use Git for version control, right? Because that's the best. Well, we bought Enterprise Star Team 25 years ago, so we're going to use that. That same person that really likes Agile, likes to iterate fast and do all those type of things is out the door, right? Or we have an SVN server, it's not always on. Okay? I know I'm starting to find the enterprise geeks in the room. All right, next. What I mean by that is innovation requires innovative technology. So we aren't using Scala in HBase because it's fun. There's no documentation. You got to read the source code. figure out how it works, all right? But we're one of the only companies in the world that are doing real-time, functional programming on event stream processing of transactions. So that's the problem. There's innovative technology that helps do that. And so now we get back to, well, it's not technology for technology's sake, but it is technology that allows people to use the best tools to solve the problem. Next. Continuous deployment. This is not something that that senior level person, you just can't find to figure out how to fill that rec, doesn't want to babysit junior programmers. Right? So if you don't have automated test frameworks, continuous deployment, there's a large section of individuals that are not going to respond to your offer because they know they'll have to go fix it. They know they want to work on hard problems, and they don't want to come in for 6 months and just get your practices in place and clean up the kitchen sink. Next. Infrastructure as a service. So you at least have to have VMware. What this means is if I want to put a test environment together or something like that, you need to be able to stand that up for the program, right? So on the West Coast and in New York, if your company's not in Amazon, it's really hard to hire a software developer, okay? Because they want to just spin up 25 servers, test it all out, and break it down. It's just a tool. VMware does that too for those guys that have file names. So, all right. Embrace open source. So sometimes this is really funny. Facebook is one of the largest open source contributors. Google is the largest open source contributor. That Chrome thing's kind of nice. AngularJS is very nice. Go, the programming language, is pretty nice. Like, why are they giving this stuff away for free? I mean, they paid those people to work on this thing. It turns out collective intelligence is really important. And every single library that you're standing on top of, it's really nice if other people have found the edges of that. And so there's certain environments, Microsoft, for example, is becoming, 5 years ago, I would have just said, just don't use Microsoft, right? But culturally, their company is changing quite a bit too. But embracing open source is a company-wide culture thing, right? So if every single JavaScript library that your developers want to use needs to go through a 2-month enterprise approval process to get that okay, it's really hard to keep programmers, right? Or they have to go write the same thing that's already in open source that the rest of the world uses. I'm sure they're not copying it, right? Control C, Control F, Control R. Double backbone, JS. So these are great things because we can't reinvent the world if we want to go fast. All right, so these are all tells, right? In an interview, you're interviewing them, they're interviewing you if they're any good. Also, again, this is as they're there. If they leave, this is usually why they're leaving. Next, no religion. Who's a J2EE certified developer? I am. Okay, that's religion, man. I got a big silver bullet, and no matter what we solve, we're going to use Hibernate and J2EE. Okay, so from technologies, it's just a tool. It's a tool to solve a business problem. And in technology, because we get a little passionate about it, because we're kind of weird individuals and we like StarCraft and this, there's so much individual identity tied up into work when you're a programmer that we almost create these cults, right? So, let's start a Ruby versus PHP conversation. Xamarin versus HBase. These type of things are there's no point in, right? They're just tools to help you solve problems. It's always amazes me when somebody like LinkedIn says, they're dropping Scala for It's like hacker news, I suppose. It has no point. Next. For fun, go to bano.com/internships and look exactly how we've laid out that page. So we are selling the technology stack we use. Literally, parents paid their kids to fly to Cedar Falls, Iowa from Boston to work with our programmers because of this picture. All right, that's how you get people involved. Next. Continued learning. This seems like it should be like a pretty simple one. How are we doing on time? Okay. It seems like it should be a simple one. But most programmers, like I said, their identity is wrapped up in programming, right? They love this stuff. To someone, it's the first thing they've ever actually been really good at. People respect them about, right? Like, nobody cared about their Star Wars facts growing up. But it turns out now, if you can program, like, you're kind of a man because BMWs are nice. Okay? You just gotta get them to do CrossFit and Pharaohs and they're great. Okay? And we do have a rule at bars, don't talk about man with the girls. That's an extra continued learning experience. You're married with 3 kids? First slide here. You have to be disciplined to do code readings and meetups. Even if they're internal, right? Have to do them every week. I know there's deadlines. I know there's spikes in development. I know there's all these things, but it takes habit. It's like working out, right? You stop working out for 1 week, and then the next week, you don't really go, and the third week, like, you know what, French fries look good again. Right? The fourth week, malts look even better with French fries. By the 5th week, you're at Monster Burger twice a day. Okay? Same thing happens with these things because you can't. It's an intangible asset. It's really hard to figure out the return on that investment. But really, what it's doing is it's breaking down silos of communication. It's dissipating knowledge throughout your company. It's making sure there is a code of ownership throughout there. So it's critical. Because they're younger people, they can't normally challenge a senior developer, but in this type of environment, it's not a challenge. Okay, why did you write that code that way? I'd like to understand why you did that. Now the senior developer, these guys stay up all night, right? It's because they're, oh man, this is how I did this. Well, there were 20 commits at 2 a.m. and they refactored everything to get ready for the presentation. Okay, next. Books and book club. Everyone who's a geek likes to solve hard problems, right? First slide. You want to fix these overarching issues that nobody else has solved before. Technology, every 9 months, whatever you did 9 months ago is irrelevant. Anyone bought my Adobe Flash book? No. I was the best in the world at that, but it doesn't really matter right now. I was a PHP language contributor. Anyone using that? Sorry, half of that crap was my fault. So those types of things are really about this atmosphere that it's exciting to learn. Geeks will do this on their own time. You just need to give them the supplies and give them the time to discuss it. Again, senior leadership has to be passionate about the same things as well. We call it a conference per diem, and it's part of their compensation plan. All right, so you come in, if you're a junior developer, you get $1,500, literally in your job offer. Okay, I don't care where you go. But they all end up going to the same places, right? If you're a software engineer, you get some more. If you're a senior software engineer, you get some more. If you're getting hired up, you get 4 conferences a year. This does 2 things. Number 1 says, we're committed to you becoming better while you're here. The other thing it does is, turns out we're wicked smart at zeros. Okay? Like, that doesn't pay well. You need to send people to Mecca, Silicon Valley, to Boston, MIT, to New York, and go to these places where people realize, wow, there's other people like me and they're a lot smarter. The gains you get from that is they come back, yes, they teach things, but they also come back and they go, man, I want to get better at what I do. Like, I want to get better at my trade, my passion. All right? The thing here is introverts don't come and ask to go to a conference. They whine about it. Man, listen to WWDC again. Right?
That's because you registered 3 minutes instead of 2.
Right. So, yeah, that's Google I/O. I wear my Google shirt every day, an Android shirt or whatever. Okay, so these things are really important, right? And the software companies that build those type of products, they get that, right? And that's why they have Mark Hamill as an MC and everything, right? Who knows who Mark Hamill is? Okay, we do have, thank you. A couple weeks here. All right, everyone else you can go to the Salesforce conference. Room 5's going to be there, I'm sure. So, but they're not going to come and ask. They're not going to come and ask you for a book. Does that make sense? They're not going to ask you to go to a conference. If you say, would you like to go to a conference, what are they going to say? Absolutely. Yes. Damn, I don't know. Right? So you have to explicitly set this stuff in place because they're never going to ask for it. Okay? Next. A clear mentorship. And what I mean by this is, again, outside of the arrogant asshole that knows everything, programmers don't really like to ask for help. Has anyone ever noticed that? Okay, so you have to make these intersections to allow them to become better. You give them the books, but did they apply those things? Right, so your senior level people, just make sure that they like coaching, right? They love mentoring. They want to participate that knowledge into there. And most senior people do like that because they don't want to answer the pager at 2 a.m., right? Because they did that for 10 years already. Okay? So clear mentorship, again, like conference for DMs, is, you know, if you have Microsoft Exchange server, like there should be a calendar thing where they know when that time's going to happen so that they can go through their code together. So if there's no feedback to them, that's still fine. It gives them the freedom that they're on the right path towards the vision. Does that make sense? Because most programmers have an amazing anxiety that when we fire them any time. They're introverts. So you know, their annual 360 review has nothing to do with programming. It's just their life. That's not enough feedback. I mean, this is a bi-weekly, if not weekly type of thing. So we alternate mentorship days, 1 week, and then the next time is a code review or a meetup type thing. Then anytime we launch a product or a new piece of software, anybody can attend it. We do full technical deep dive. And it's what's good about it, here's the assumptions. I think this context is key in software. Here's the assumptions we have about going into it. Here's what we learned and wish we would have known. Would have been nice to know about printers, right? And this is where a budget exploded or whatever. And then here's the technologies that we used to pull that off. Full rip through it all. So again, you're trying to get rid of that code isolation, and you're trying to give people an opportunity to discuss openly, safely. Again, they're introverts. A safe place to discuss what they've done, get corrective criticism if necessary, but it's not a closed door meeting. Your code is horrible. All right, next. You must give people time to do technical spikes on new concepts. And what I mean by that is there's certain programming paradigms that are the value of the programmer that have nothing to do with the technology they use to implement. So if you've built, ASP, JSP pages, and you've used an MVC structure, it's really not that difficult to do that in a different language, right? But what happens is, technology moves, you need to give people that time. Maybe it's a month, where they've been knocking it out. We had a bunch of people that were really proficient at Adobe Flex, and it was the best thing in the world for building really rich web applications. With WebSockets, some of these WebSockets aren't there yet. It was in Flash in 1994. So, 2004. But those same people are really getting great at NBC patterns and things like that. So you have to let people know that there's this time. We took all our Flex developers and now they're iOS or Android developers. The same people, they have the same experience in the domain. They know how to solve problems, they know how to communicate in the group. But they needed a couple months to make that transition happen. Does that make sense? Because otherwise you're like, I'm gonna run you hard like a horse and then put you out in pasture and shoot you, right? If you don't have a clear way where you can kind of make these technology transitions. And you should do that in your own time, it's nice, but it's not really a long-term thing. Next. So I guess I slid over that, but technical spikes on new concepts. So we did like the last thing I just said was for this bullet point. Explain this bullet point. We've done technical spikes on, we've got like our own ACH writer, credit card swipe reader, and QR code integration to blow-up point-of-sale systems. And there's all kinds of stuff that you go and play with, right? It's not production code. It's one big meeting class or whatever, but it works. And really, you're not focusing on the code on these technical spikes. You're focusing on the problem, and it allows you to go try and fix something for a month, come back and say, well, what do we know about this now, and address that differently. This overcomes your ability to not try and pigeonhole people into scoping projects like this. Well, if I threw it a little bit farther out there, I'm sure we can get it done. So everyone knows about the mythical man month. We call it, there's a 6 month, we could rewrite Google in 6 months. All of our programmers say, well, if it's 6 months, we can get that done. Of course. So rewrite Google in 6 months, and especially if it's just me in the so these technical spikes, when you look at something and you get deer in the headlight looks, like, hey, what would it take to do this? That's a great time to go let's prototype something. So people call that internal hackathons or different phrases like that. But it's really about learning about the domain of the problem you're trying to solve, and not about the technology and all that other stuff. Now again, you need technical people in leadership so they don't go show it to to the SEC with the combat drives itself. And that was a technical spike, right? So that's where you need those kind of technical people to ensure that they know that it's just technical debt, it's throwaway code. That's fine. We'll learn about the problem. All right, one more. Make sure you're making environments that people can get together in. And Starbucks really isn't that nice. You can make Starbucks looking places inside your organization that people get together and work on stuff. It's really worth it to have these type of learning type experiences. Transparent atmosphere. Again, think of the group we're speaking to. We're talking about hardcore geeks. They already know everything, otherwise they couldn't become a programmer. So what we do is we display metrics that tie back to the vision. And so transactions processed in a day that got enriched. We do a bunch of fancy stuff to a credit card transaction. That's really important to us. User adoption rates, return rates, all these type of things that ultimately lead to the bottom line, so they're nice for that. But they're also nice where people get to see how what they're doing on a daily basis, right? They updated the UI, they made the sign-up process easier, converts to real metrics that are being grabbed out there. So, next. Create safe zones for open dialogue. So again, it's really important to be explicit. So we have something called Be Respected every Friday, and it's just time where you can talk about anything. It's a safe zone. Next. Map the employees' value to the mission. For technical people, this is really important because I just write code. I'm really into type theory. How does that apply to banking, right? Well, you kind of have to walk it back up. Next. Openly iterate on process. This is just a simple way of saying we don't know it all, right? So from the management side of things, we love iteration of software. Make sure you're openly iterating on the process around that. And for us, it's been really great. We would totally be out of business if we weren't getting those constant feedback loops for how we manage things. Next. Committed to quickly fixing issues. What I mean by that is, a lot of the programs are programmed. So if there's problems that are stopping them from doing that, maybe it's a development environment, maybe they don't have a simulator, maybe they don't have whatever. Don't say, good, thanks for that feedback. It's like, we'll have this done, but we're not going to do it for a year because this. We're not going to do that. We're going to do that right away. Really clear communication. Next. Dissipate the why. Why are we building? Why are we building kernel? This is a new product of ours. Why is that important to the company? Right? And you really have to continue to reinforce the why. Because the why is the problem they're trying to solve. I'll go one more. This is Be Respected every Friday. It's basically, the concept's pretty simple. It's our joke on retrospectives from Arnold. But we don't want everybody going to the bar and bitching about it, right? We want to be coming in happier. Not everyone has to be here. But just to kind of share that. We got one more. This is important too. All right? So encourage speaking. The geeks, get them to Iowa Code Camp, do those type of things. So I actually used to have encouraged speaking in S as a dollar sign. So we've got people applying for the largest tech conferences in the world, and we pay for them to go. And it's just because the value you get out of them going is great. Next. Technology user groups, attend. Don't send the 25-year-old in. You gotta go. The leadership has to go to these type of things, and you have to speak at them too, right? You want to hire a job of developers? When was the last time you spoke at Central Iowa Job Users Group? Okay. Next. Regional conferences. Make sure people are going to Strange Loop. There's great things in Chicago, and getting involved in those type of areas that builds community. I met a guy who worked at Amazon at Strange Loop in St. Louis 4 years ago. He now is in charge of infrastructure for us. And it's through those type of conversations and things like that that you are hiring these people and bringing them in. Next. Invest in your open source community. So if you're standing on this code, give back to them. I don't care if you send the person who fixed your bug coffee. If you work at it, man, if I worked at John Deere, like every open source person that helps us out would have like John Deere t-shirts, right? I use that brain equity all over the place. But get involved and help those people that are helping you, whether that's committing code, fixing bugs, or donating coffee or t-shirts. Next. Support your foundation is basically things like this. So Mike's helped me out quite a bit. I'm more than pleased to try and hopefully I'm helping out being here today. And so it reciprocates, right? So if you're not supporting those that are around you and kind of giving back to that, I'm on the board of directors of the Technology Association of Iowa. And we bought more beer at Tech Brew than any one company in Iowa. I'm on the board of the Association of Financial Technology, which is crazy because they let me on. But that's the community that I'm kind of a part of. But it's also all the open source things we're part of too. Next slide. So this is a bunch of stuff. The high level stuff is the important things you need to remember. those 6 different bullet points. And I tried to give you examples of what that actually means, right? But to give you a kind of perspective, we have 32 computer science students. 28 of them are from, 27 of them are from UNI. So basically, that's a pretty good feeder program for us. We have people from Carnegie Mellon. We have people with degrees that we don't hire until they go to the intern program. But you know, that's part of investment into the people we're trying to get here. It kind of tells that we're doing something right. So, next slide. All right. That's it, unless there's questions. Oh, not a problem. So most of the time we wear suits, which is funny because there's some banker people in the room. And so I'm really excited to be like a geek entrepreneur today. Yeah.
You mentioned you have 32 interns. How many global?
Yeah. So I know exactly what payroll is. So to this end, I'm not real sure right now. Yeah, like 75, something like that.
25%?
Yeah. We have a 100% hire rate from people who give jobs to from our internship program. So now if one person doesn't take that, then certainly not screw that number. We're doing pretty good on that right now. And we even, we're to the point, if you're a fresh grad, like, feel sorry for you, you gotta go through a summer internship program. Because they have no work experience. And so we've got an Iowa State fresh grad who's going through the program. Yeah.
Second, I know other companies are really doing here doing startups. Are you worried at all about somebody coming along and creating competition for what you guys are doing here? Just bring that part of it. That's going on.
I think that's a great question. We're investing in the future. We're trying to build a great company. And we're not trying to build a company that gets acquired next year. And that's exhibited in things like having 32 CS interns, right? Because that negatively affects the bottom line this summer. It's not really the, $14 an hour for 32 people, it's the MacBook Pros. Right? We treat them like first-class citizens. It really hurts. So I think we're, some of the PR stuff that we showed before also helps. But I think people like working at that place where they get to work on hard problems. So we do all these things really well. And for our growth needs, we get to pick the best of the best. So I'm not, at this point, I'm not that worried.
I gotta say this, that's one of the best things we've ever heard. What he's saying, this is, he's gonna win against his competition. He's got to win. And he gets out. I guess the college or whatever, that's it.
So, all the big fintech companies coming up here and Intuit's copying our intern program because they think it's sweet. It's like, games on Go ahead.
Have you guys reached a point where you have to worry about scalability? Because I love your nimbleness in being able to choose tools, but at some point, team A chooses this one tool and team B chooses another tool, and now you have a different problem.
Yeah, so I think that's, we have 3 products, and those have depth to them. They don't have breadth. And I think you get into that problem when you have that breadth, kind of horizontal in architecture rather than adding complexity deeply. The other piece is we have a RESTful, REST is everything's REST. Well, there's other things other than REST, but they have to expose REST. All right, so we have to do a bunch of things that are faster than REST. But you have to do it that way. And that was something we decided a long time ago. And what's been fun is we've had companies, huge banks or huge service providers come in and they're like, well, we already have our own management UI. We just want to take this from you. How can we do that? Like, here's the Robin Arnold. Have fun. So that's something I can't take credit. There's a lot of Amazon's mantra that is stealing. Other questions? Yep.
So it sounds like you probably don't really end up getting bad hires if you're not organized this way. You should do the right people. But like if you do have a situation where you just got somebody that's not fitting in, or clearly that it's just not a good fit, what you guys resolve that real quickly, or how do you guys handle?
Well, in two ways. I mean, we've had the intern count used to be larger. We're through May, so some of them have gone away already. Or some of them said, you know what, I guess I don't really like programming. So there's some of that. We look for problem solvers when we hire people. I know everyone says that, but I mean, we really focus on people that like to solve problems and like to help people solve problems. I had an interview on Monday this week, and the guy was like, I want to build a code school for helping people internally that are like internal specific projects. He's kind of just talking out loud about how the things he wanted to do to help people. And so he's Ruby on Rails guy. I don't know what we'll do with that, but we'll invest into teaching him the languages we use to get his 15 years of cultural experience that he's going to bring to it. So what's probably not scalable is I normally get involved in most interviews. There's lots of interviews that they never get to me, but when it comes to somebody to be hired, ultimately, I sit them down and I say, here's the vision, here's what we're up to, and things like that. Which is really important. Luke Amdor is, I would argue, is one of the best programmers in Iowa. We hired him 3 years ago, and he is just like, he types code at 120 words, and he just flops. But he also loves coaching people and doing things like that. And what I knew when we were on the right path was we released kernel at Finovate a couple weeks ago. And he's like, this is exactly what we talked about on whiteboard 3 years ago. And that he was getting that the rest of the team. And so that was exciting that we actually meant what we wanted to do. Like 3 years ago, I told him, like, this is going to take 3 years. We're going to do this mobile banking thing, but don't worry about that. It means the net.
I have one more question about that.
Go ahead.
Technology workforce-wise, right now, 14% are women. So I was wondering if you guys, what you've seen, if you can share some perspective on that and steps maybe you guys are taking in that regard.
So, our technical writing, account management, channel management is like 100% women on the technical side of product implementation and things like that. I think their brains are just better at multitasking. But I think that's a STEM problem. That's probably not, maybe I'll run for governor someday and fix it that way. But it really is, I think that's women getting discouraged or stereotyped early on. Has nothing to do with, that leads to the greater problem. Another problem we have is, I went through, the UNI computer science program with 140 friends. They got like 24 people going through there right now. All of them were interns of mine, so good luck. I took that college. Yeah, I got the whole, I have sophomores from UNI in my internship program. Sorry, they're all mine. So somehow, I think if you think about what I meant by IT versus programmers as first-class citizens. We have down to the grade school level issue with people saying, well, that's computers, that's going to, that's being outsourced, right? Well, help desk was outsourced. Break fix was outsourced. Innovation and the creation of IP is very much America, right? So I think we have to overcome that in parents. Because you think about, so I'm 34, you think about me up 10 years, right? That's the populace my oldest is 6 years old. That's who has kids there, and they went through .com, right? And that's what, remember, you could make $100,000 if you like to do music, we'll teach you how to program. Like, wonder why that didn't work out, okay? So my oldest brother, 8 years older than me, he was one of those guys. He was working at CSI in Minneapolis. So that .com parent that thinks all those jobs went overseas is our biggest problem right now. And that's both women and men.
Thank you very much.